a singular honor and privilege of welcoming everyone to this very important event on the calendar of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. It's a marketplace roundtable, a forum that allows the NGX Connect with its main stakeholders as market practitioners, solicitors, broker-dealers, advisors, as well as listed companies and everyone within the ecosystem. So today's CEO Roundtable brings some of the biggest names in the industry together to discuss how to continue using the markets to raise capital. The market has been very critical in financing businesses, operations, and supporting governments over the years. So every year, the Nigerian Exchange Limited puts this conference together to begin to harvest thoughts and ideas from the markets ecosystem in order to get a whole lot better in terms of its intervention and be the platform of choice. So this is part of the capital market advocacy of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. So we'll have to spend the next 1 hour, 45 minutes together looking through some presentations. Then, of course, we have 2 panels that have been designed. My name is Bosin Amofaye. I work with Arise News. I'm a show anchor of Arise Exchange, and I also participate on Frontier Africa Reports. So I want to say a very big thank you to all our special guests on the show this morning, joining us virtually from within Nigeria and around the world. We thank you very much. Remember that we will appreciate everyone keeping their button on mute if you're not speaking. Then we want you to, if you're possible, to put on your videos. We want to see everyone. We want to see how well you're looking today. I want you to make your comments as well. We have a chat room as well and the Q button. So put in your comments and questions to any of the speakers and members of the panel, including the moderators who will be handling the 2 other panels that will be coming after the opening formalities, as it were, which I'm handling from here. So let's look at how we can create a better enabling ecosystem for accessing capital from the Nigerian capital market, where Nigerian Exchange Limited stands as the poster boy, as it were, the leading institution in that. So I'm going to say a very big thank you to the chairman of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, AB Mahmood, SAN, OON, who will be speaking with us shortly. I want to say thank you also for putting this together to Temi Kokola, who is the CEO of Nigerian Exchange Limited. We have quite a whole number of speakers as well as participants. But let me also say a very special thank you to our special guests. The keynote address will be delivered by His Excellency Honorable Minister Otumba Adeni Adebayo, who is a CON, Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, as well as the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, who is the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the head of the SEC, the Director General, Lamido Yuguda, is also recognized being here this morning on this particular event. We thank everyone who will be here. I'll do a bit more recognitions earlier, especially those who are joining us from outside the country and participating in the other 2 panels that we have. But let me just quickly stick to time, and I'm going to yield the floor right now for a very warm welcome address from AB Mahmood, SAN, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, OON, the Chairman of Nigerian Exchange Limited. AB Mahmood, you have the floor. Give us a rousing welcome.
Thank you very much, Amofaye, and very good morning. I welcome you all to this very special event. So I begin by, of course, recognizing the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, His Excellency Otumba Adeni Adebayo. I also want to welcome very warmly the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Mrs. Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, and of course, our Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mr. Lamido Yuguda. Distinguished speakers and also other guests, very good morning. On behalf of the Board and Management of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, NGX, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, His Excellency Otumba Adeni Adebayo, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Mrs. Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, and of course the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, for honoring my invitation to this roundtable. I'd like to appreciate our very distinguished panelists who will be sharing their wealth of experience with stakeholders in the capital markets. We believe these conversations will serve as a birthing channel towards creating a viable ecosystem that further deepens the capital market. Many thanks to our very special guests that have taken the call to sit around this table this morning. Our quest to be Africa's preferred exchange hub requires NGX to continually lead in developing and implementing leading initiatives that provide stakeholders with robust capital market solutions that contribute to the growth and development of the Nigerian economy. To this end, we have convened this roundtable with the ultimate objective of enhancing the listing experience for listed companies and providing useful insights to prospective companies. NGX, as Nigeria's exchange, remains strategically positioned to support the aspirations of its stakeholders and the Nigerian economy as a whole. And we believe the deliberations from the panel sessions will help us improve operations and offerings in listing experience, market development, advocacy, and investment opportunities. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our past stakeholders' engagements have generated ideas that provided the exchange with more insights in carrying out its advocacy efforts with policy makers. And we expect this. Some of these ideas have been implemented and have gone ahead to rebound in the economy. In view of our recent restructuring, we are better positioned to adequately intensify key initiatives such as embarking on government policy efforts for listed companies and increase retail investor participation in the capital markets. In the end, our aim is to build a market for the future, whilst we address the issues of financial inclusion in the Nigerian capital market. At NGX, we remain committed to helping issuers derive optimum value from their interactions with the market. We remain resolute in our commitment to align with global best practices, even as we meet the needs of our valued customers. We look forward to the outcome of the NGX CEO Roundtable, which will undoubtedly contribute to deepening the capital market, improving liquidity as well as help us to identify institutional and capacity building initiatives needed to develop the market for long-term value creation. Thank you all for taking a seat at the table, and I wish all of us successful deliberations this morning. Thank you, and welcome again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, the chairman of the NGX, AB Mahmood, SAN, for inviting us to the table. And I hope more than 300 participants are already, including speakers, are already sitting around the table, Mr. Chairman. So I'm delighted to tell you that the table is full and we're expecting more. So you've got 300 around the table already for this very robust conversation. And we're getting comments in. Everyone is excited to be here today. This is a high-profile event of NGX. Thank you for raising the curtain, the chairman of NGX, AB Mahmood. Thank you so much, SAN, for those comments. We will take our keynote address, and of course, that goes straight to the Honorable Minister in charge of Industry, Trade, and Investment. Everyone stand by as we listen to the Honorable Minister, Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, for this warm keynote address to this particular 2022 edition of NGX CEO Roundtable.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to address you today at the CEO Roundtable organized by Nigerian Exchange Limited, NGX. I commend the board and management of NGX for successfully planning this event themed Creating the Enabling Ecosystem for Accessing Capital from the Nigerian Capital Markets. Let us first review Nigeria's current economic landscape. The Nigerian economy has been able to maintain strong growth in the past 6 quarters. This has been built on the back of significant expansionary monetary policies. Our efforts to move away from an over-reliance on the oil and gas industry are proving fruitful, with the non-oil sector driving economic growth. The telecommunication, banking, and agricultural sectors are at the forefront of this drive. Nigeria, with a gross domestic product, GDP, of $446, remained Africa's largest economy in 2021. This is despite its challenges of productivity, insecurity, and infrastructure. These are areas the federal government is working diligently to improve, and our efforts are producing a continued upturn. GDP growth came in at 3.11% year-on-year in real terms in the first quarter of 2022, indicating that the second quarter may be the 7th consecutive quarter of positive growth. Undoubtedly, Nigeria, the fastest growing African economy, could move up to 14th place in the global GDP rankings by 2050. To achieve this, we must successfully continue to diversify our economy and strengthen its institutions and infrastructure. Building a vibrant capital market. Building a vibrant capital market is integral to Nigeria's growth ambitions. Capital markets exist to enable the efficient allocation of resources that spur economic growth and development and remain a fundamental channel for actualizing capital formation and financial intermediation. As more of our startups and companies grow and mature, we must ensure that they have continued access to a range of financing options to support their expansion plans. Many countries have leveraged the capital markets to develop their economies. Singapore, Dubai, the United Kingdom, and the United States, to name a few. Given Nigeria's strategic positioning and size in Africa, its capital markets are strategic to not only the country's economy, but also regionally. In recent years, the contribution of Nigeria's capital markets to economic growth has been undermined by a number of challenges. Despite recording a 39.34% growth in market capitalization between 2018 and 2019, the value of the equities market declined drastically between 2014 and 2019, recording a CAGR of minus 5.78%. This decline appeared to be parallel with the Nigerian economy, as we observe a 90.5% correlation with the country's GDP figures for the same period. A part of the underperformance of the market may be linked to macroeconomic factors, but market dynamics also reveal specific challenges attributed to the resulting decline in market activities. Some notable issues include low liquidity and inadequate domestic retail participation, high transaction cost on trading, stunted growth in equity listings, low market penetration, and a relatively low number of investable securities in the equities and fixed income markets. Despite these weaknesses, the inherent potential of Nigeria's capital markets remain enormous. That is why events like this are important, as they foster public and private sector synergies. If we work more closely to develop this sector, it will positively affect the entire African sub-region. Investment for development. One of Nigeria's most high-impact developmental ambitions is the driving of strategic investment into our country's real sector transformation. As part of this transformation agenda, the federal government is working to improve local manufacturing and overall industrial capacity. We have 17 operational special economic zones and 4 more under construction. They support areas as varied as export processing, large-scale manufacturing, warehousing, logistics services, tourism, food processing and packaging, and technology development, while the remaining 3 are dedicated to oil and gas-related activities. To encourage private capital inflow into these zones, the government has developed a number of fiscal incentives to encourage investment. A key component of this agenda is the backward integration of key value chains, something that often requires patient capital. Businesses championing the government's real sector development plans rely heavily on the capital market. It is a key enabler of our national development. The role of NGX. NGX is a formidable organization. Over the years, the exchange has demonstrated its unwavering commitment to progress and advancement of our country by providing platforms that enable both issuers and market participants achieve their goals. As Nigeria continues post-pandemic economic rebuilding, I believe that the dialogue held by key stakeholders at this NGX CEO Roundtable will be instrumental in advancing our capital market. The global economic downturn disproportionately affected developing nations, and our citizens have been negatively affected. The recent cryptocurrency crash has been another blow to investors globally. It has made many have a renewed interest in more stable investment vehicles like treasury bills, bonds, stocks, and shares. Today's deliberations have a direct effect on the lives of the investing public and the community at large. So I wish you fruitful deliberations. Once again, I congratulate the chairman of NGX, Mr. A.B. Mahmood, SAN, the CEO, Mr. Temi Popola, and the entire team at the NGX for their dedication to Nigeria's development. I thank you all, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
We say a very warm thank you to the Honorable Minister in charge of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, for those very rousing keynote address, bringing the entire economy into the ecosystem, into the role that the capital market plays in supporting the economy, broadly speaking. Thank you so much. We're harvesting some of these thoughts being delivered in these opening remarks to be part of the panel discussions that will go on a little bit later. So as we move on progressively on the roundtable, let me take the privilege and honor to invite a goodwill message from the Honorable Minister of the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, who is unavoidably absent, but represented by no other capable top official of the ministry, the Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Finance, Alhaji Aliyu Ahmed, who will be delivering a very powerful and encouraging message to this conference from the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you. Alhaji Ahmed, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Bosan, for that very warm introduction. Let me start by offering the apology of the Honorable Minister, who is currently traveling with Mr. President to Senegal for International Development Association Summit, which is holding in Dakar, the capital of Senegal. She wanted to be here, but for that trip, and she had asked me to convey her apologies and deliver this speech on her behalf. So thank you so very much. Let me start by saying, Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumbani Adebayo, CON, Chairman, Nigerian Exchange Limited, Mr. A.B. Mahmood, SANON, DG Security and Exchange Commission, Malan Lamido Yuguda, CEO NGX, Mr. Temi Popola, the entire team at NGS, and the distinguished ladies and gentlemen who are on this call. Good morning to you. On behalf of the Honorable Minister, this is the speech by the Minister. I'm delighted to be with you today at the CEO Roundtable event organized by the Nigerian Exchange Limited. I commend the board and management of NGX for successfully planning this event themed creating the enabling ecosystem for accessing capital from the Nigerian capital markets. This roundtable event is instrumental in addressing major concerns, formulating new solutions, and aiding development across the Nigerian capital market through insightful panel discussions involving key stakeholders, looking at the array of eminent dignitaries who have graced this auspicious event, despite their very tight commitment, assures me of the level of interest in ensuring the development of our markets through dialogue and discourse. I strongly believe that dialogue and discourse among key stakeholders are instrumental in advancing the capital markets. This will help improve the ease of access to capital by offering a deep, liquid, and integrated capital market, which will further deepen access to alternative sources of finance and boost investors' confidence to save and invest long-term. The Nigerian Exchange Limited has demonstrated over the years its unwavering commitment to the growth and development of our country. This is indeed a vital convergence as Nigeria and indeed the entire world continue to cope with unprecedented economic challenges occasioned by COVID-19, among others, as we all plot our way, the required pathway to recovery. As a nation faced with burden of economic recovery as a result of the global pandemic, the capital market proves to be an efficient, reliable solution for businesses to raise capital and for investors to grow wealth. Throughout history, technology has been a driving force for growth and prosperity. While technological progress in the past has been incremental, often requiring decades of, if not centuries, for diffusion and adoption, the structural and behavioral changes brought about by many frontier technologies are often rapid and widespread. It is not news that new financial technologies continue to reshape the face of finance for investors and businesses across the globe. As frontier technologies emerge, many developing countries are establishing deep and competitive capital markets. Ladies and gentlemen, I acknowledge that there is a lot of public misunderstanding and misinformation about the legislature's activities and contribution to Nigeria's overall socio-economic and political progress. Nonetheless, the legislature's contribution to Nigeria's democracy are crucial, and the place of legislation as a tool of government in protecting citizens and organizing society cannot be overstated. The proposed discussions that few from this CEO Roundtable event will provide actionable insights into the design and implementation of new and existing policies and legislative frameworks regarding economic development. As we continue to pass landmark legislations, I will enjoy all stakeholders present to work together and set the bar for innovative financing that allows market to thrive, businesses to grow, and the people to live in dignity. Once again, I congratulate the chairman of Nigerian Exchange Limited, Mr. A.B. Mahmood, SAN, the CEO, Mr. Temi Kukuola, and the entire team at NGX for convening this event. I wish you all a very engaging, fruitful, and actionable deliberations. I thank you all for listening.
We thank you very sincerely, Alhaji Aliyu Ahmed, the Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, representing the indefatigable Finance Minister, Dr. Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, who is unavoidably absent, and of course on the national assignment with Mr. President to Dakar, Senegal. Thank you very much for bringing those very powerful goodwill message from the Ministry of Finance and on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Finance herself. Thank you very much. We're all putting all this together. And of course, as A.B. Mahmood, SAN, the chairman of Nigerian Exchange Limited, says inviting everyone to come around the table for this discussion. I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, that the table is getting full, is increasing in number. We have close to 500 participants as we speak, not only from Nigeria, but from around the world, from the United States, from Kenya, from South Africa, from Zimbabwe, and beyond. So this is an international CEO roundtable as we speak right now. We're seeing a whole lot of folks saying, thank you for putting this together, NGX, Nigerian Exchange Limited, for this annual event and trying to harvest as much ideas as possible on behalf of the economy and on behalf of the marketplace, which Nigerian Exchange Limited actually champion. It is time now for us to listen to the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Director General of the SEC here in Nigeria, Mr. Lamido Yuguda. He's got the what I call helicopter view of the marketplace on the regulatory side and across the entire ecosystem. So he's giving us a very goodwill message on behalf of the SEC, and he's bringing the regulatory environment into the entire conversation and what it means for all market participants, including issuers in the marketplace. I have the pleasure of inviting the head of the SEC, Director General, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, for his goodwill message.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the existing protocols. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the Nigerian Exchange Limited CEO Roundtable with the theme, Creating the Enabling Ecosystem for Accessing Capital from the Nigerian Capital Markets. The theme of the event resonates with the mandate of the Securities and Exchange Commission of developing and regulating the market while protecting investors. From 1962, when the Capital Issues Committee was mandated to examine applications from companies seeking to raise capital, the Commission has evolved in developing the Nigerian capital market as a veritable source of medium to long-term financing for governments and businesses. To further facilitate the capital raising exercise, and in line with Section 13, subsection 0 of the Investment and Securities Act, ISA 2007, the Commission registered trading platforms and other critical market infrastructures and delegated some of its powers to them. The demutualization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, NSE, which led to the emergence of the current NGX group, has brought with it a renewed focus on expanding the market by consolidating on the successes achieved through the traditional methods of capital raising, while working with important stakeholders to introduce new sources of financing. The Commission welcomes the sound initiatives of NGX for continued engagement with experts to share their perspectives on changes that will lead to the much desired expansion of the market. This effort will not have come at a better time than now, when economies are just beginning to face the devastating economic reality of the Ukraine and Russia crisis, which reared its head just as nations were still grappling with the health and economic challenges posed by the coronavirus pandemic. You may be aware that the Commission is in the implementation phase of a comprehensive market and institutional reform program, the Capital Market Master Plan, that is intended to reposition the Nigerian capital market to be globally competitive. The Commission has successfully completed a comprehensive review of the master plan. The reviewed plan is expected to guide further development of the capital market so as to attract more funds for economic growth and development. The Commission is also making concerted efforts to ensure the repeal of the Investments and Securities Act 2007 and the passage of a new Investments and Securities Bill into law. This is to align the law with current realities and global trends in capital market regulation, including growing changes in market practices, processes, and products. We have consistently focused on the creation of an ecosystem in which governments, entrepreneurs, and other issuers can efficiently access capital. Stakeholders must, however, look further to introduce more products leveraging on the emerging trend of financial technology. The Securities and Exchange Commission and the Nigerian Exchange Limited have moved to make the processes involved in listing more efficient and cost-effective by streamlining the approval process between the SEC and the NGX. Furthermore, the Commission has been implementing measures aimed at encouraging more listings by creating new rules and amending existing ones, improving general review processes, continuing engagements with issuers, advisors, and other critical stakeholders. Last year, the Commission collaborated with NEC to inaugurate the Securities Issuers Forum, which was aimed at providing an opportunity for issuers to engage directly with regulators on pertinent regulatory issues. The objectives of the forum, among others, are to maintain regular contact with the regulator, promote sound corporate governance and ethical conduct, advise the regulator on regulations affecting companies and issuers, promote healthy competition, and maintain an enabling business environment by monitoring issues of direct relevance to members. Ladies and gentlemen, let me reiterate that the SEC is continually focused on increasing the visibility and attractiveness of our market and will continue to focus on building and sustaining a fair, transparent, and efficient capital market. The Commission will also continue to embrace the ease of doing business principle by simplifying its processes and enhancing time to market through the elimination of superfluous requirements that lead to inordinate delays in capital raising and other capital market operations. This is particularly important so that the market be deepened further and provide an avenue for hitherto inadmissible entities to be eligible for listing. Once again, I thank the NGX for convening this important and timely roundtable with its inspiring theme. I look forward to receiving from today's discussions your ideas on the principles of sound capital formation, market structure, and those issues critical to the creation of an environment for capital market to thrive. I wish the organizers and all participants successful deliberations. Thank you and God bless.
We say a very big thank you to the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, for that very incisive and comprehensive goodwill message. Of course, that's what you expect from a regulator. Wants to hear from the market, ecosystem, everyone in the room on greater ideas to better deepen and expand the frontiers of the Nigerian capital market. So we have a food for thought from all our keynote speakers, from the goodwill messages that we've received from the Ministry of Finance and the head of the SEC, as well as the keynote address by the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, as well as the curtain raiser by the chairman of the NGX. So we're getting close to the opening formalities. The first panel session is warming up. So let me just quickly yield to Temi Pokuola, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, for a few words, of about a minute or two, and then we will flag off the first panel that will focus on expectations of issuers in assessing public markets in Nigeria. Temi Pokuola, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Please permit me to stand on existing protocols. On behalf of the board and the management of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, it gives me tremendous pleasure to welcome you all to the CEO Roundtable event, creating the enabling ecosystem for accessing capital from the Nigerian capital markets. I would like to express my profound gratitude to the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, His Excellency Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, the Honorable Minister for Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, the Director General of the SEC, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, policymakers, regulators, panelists, moderators, and participants that are present for making time out of your very busy schedules to attend this forum. The advancement of the Nigerian capital market has been supported by collaborative efforts between key stakeholders over numerous years. These advancements that have been made possible through advocacy drives aimed at addressing the pain points of companies in our ecosystem, the introduction of enabling policies, and the amendment of existing regulations while protecting investors' interests in the capital markets. As part of efforts to improve the current situation and attract new listings, NGX is taking a closer look at our rules to see areas of amendments to ensure that companies raise capital more efficiently while protecting the investing public. NGX also continues to work with several stakeholders, many of whom are present today, to ensure that the time to market and the cost for listing are optimized. We have also intensified efforts with policymakers to shape reforms and to shape policies that are supportive of listings and the capital market at large. Most of the listings on the exchange today occurred as a result of a government-related policy that has been supportive of listing activity. An example is the change of key policies across the banking sector that brought about a wave of listing activities from that sector in the 2005 era. The purpose of this roundtable is primarily to engage listed companies and our intermediaries and everyone within the capital market ecosystem with the aim of addressing current issues in the market and for developing strategies for improving the markets, exploring areas and processes that can be optimized in our markets. We believe that through the discussions that will ensue in this roundtable, we will achieve these objectives. Finally, as we work towards becoming the preferred African exchange hub, by propelling innovation in a range of areas, facilitating capital raising activities evidenced by over 7 trillion naira's worth of capital raises across several asset classes for both private and public corporations in 2021 alone. The exchange will continue to work on improving all our processes, will continue to work on developing new products and addressing many of the challenges that face listed companies and addressing the barriers that prevent unlisted companies from tapping the market. Once again, I welcome every single one of our guests to this interactive session. I encourage you to please participate fully. I see that the questions are already coming in, and I wish you all a very fruitful deliberation today. Thank you very much.
A very big thank you, Temi Pokuola, the Chief Executive Officer at Nigerian Exchange Limited. Thank you so much for those words that also contribute to the overall conversation we're having today on this 2022 edition of the NGX CEO Roundtable. We've got quite a whole lot to discuss over the next hour or so. So everyone, please stick around. We have more than 500 participants from around the world joining in on this event. So we want everyone to stick around as we look at the first panel. And I want to say a big thank you again to our keynote speakers, a special guests, as well as the goodwill messages from the SEC, from the Ministry of Finance and others. Of course, expectations of issuers in accessing public markets. The Nigerian Exchange Limited, while it wants more listings, the more capital raising, the NGX pay particular attention to what you call pre-listing, post-listing reporting standards, and corporate governance issues. So that will be the focus of the first panel. And of course, you can see on your screen the carefully selected members of that panel. Carl Toriola, who is the CEO of MTN Nigeria, is already in the room. Carl, thank you very much. Good morning for coming through and rearing to go. Engineer Ayodele Abioye, who is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at Boa Foods PLC, is also on this next panel, as well as Funsho Akere, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Stanbic IBTC Capital, which is one of the leading issuing houses in the Nigerian market, and of course the Haruna Jallo Waziri, who is the Managing Director and CEO of the Central Securities Clearing System PLC, who is also on this panel. Now, the moderator for this panel is Selua Chakri. She is the Managing Director of SCL Advisory Limited. And I'm handing over to Selua right now for the next 30 minutes to drive this panel. I'm sure as a capital market and investment market individual and in your firm, I'm sure you also know that pre-listing, post-listing, reporting, corporate governance, being a corporate responsible issuer and a listed company is very important. So I'm yielding the floor to you, and I encourage everyone to take a particular attention to this panel and bring in your questions and comments. It's in the inbox. Don't forget the Q button is there. Send in your questions either to any of the panel members or any of the speakers or directly to Selua or myself. For Selua, you've got the floor. Pick it up.
Thank you very much, Benson. And you've highlighted some of the key points. So the aim really today is to try with this really distinguished panels that we have on this webinar is to really look at and gain an in-depth understanding of the challenges issuers experience in the capital market, to also improve NGX value proposition to listed and unlisted companies, and to really try to examine and untapped opportunities that could boost Nigeria's capital market. So first of all, I'd like to also say thank you so much to NGX for inviting me to take part in this great NGX CEO Roundtable among some very, very exceptional people. So thank you so much. And I would like to say also good morning and good afternoon to everybody that has dialed in from wherever in the world. So please, stay. Send us your questions. We have this Q&A. We will talk for about 30 minutes plus with the panelists. And then if you have any questions, please drop it in and we'll pick it up at the end. So thank you. So without any further ado, I would like to kickstart by not just, let's look at the positive angle of accessing capital markets. And the question really for Carl is, what benefits has your business gained by listing on the NGX? And we would like to sort of see what you have benefited from it so far. If you can please expand on that. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I know we like in Nigeria to stand on existing protocols, but I must recognize the presence of and the introductory note of His Excellency, the Minister of Trade and Industry, Otumbani Adebayo, the representative of the Honorable Minister of Finance, Permanent Secretary Mohammed, DG of the SEC, Lamido Yabuda, my own personal board director, A.B. Mahmoud, but also the chairman of the NGX, obviously, Timmy, and the whole team. Thank you very much. Look, we've had a really good experience listing on the NGX, doing a secondary offer on the NGX, which was very much oversubscribed. So, I mean, I know I'm going to be challenged to ask as to what the problems are, how we can improve, but I must first state on record that we've received incredible support listing on the NGX and from the SEC as well in particular in getting to where we are today. I think the first and most important purpose for MTN Nigeria's listing, it wasn't really a capital raise. I think people know quite enough about our balance sheets and our cash flows to understand that that's not the priority. But as part of our ambition 2025, there's a key pillar there which talks about shared value. which really speaks to us wanting to make sure that in every territory that we operate in, and I think Nigeria is obviously the most important one for MTN as a group, we are creating value not just for the shareholders of MTN, but for the entire ecosystem, allowing retail and institutional investors to share in the growth of the revenue, profit after tax, capital of MTN Nigeria, helping to drive institutions such as the NGX using our digital capabilities to really expand the size of the stock market. So it's enabled us to deepen and diversify our shareholder base. We're very proud of the fact that in the public offer that we launched, 78% of the people who subscribed were women and 80% were under the age of 40. So very attractive for the future. We've broadened the Nigerian shareholding. We've provided a platform for creation of wealth of Nigerians. I think because we were the first digital offering, I don't think we're ever going to go back to paper offerings. The whole process of reconciling all of that takes weeks and sometimes months, whereas the digital reconciliation that allows us to submit to the apex regulator, the SEC, is something of ours. So I think we've been incredible in creating the first test case for such an opportunity. And then we create a lot of credibility around the capital markets and provides an access to capital markets for the wider public. For us, it's been fantastic success. Of course, there's governance requirements, which we have all gone through when we listed by introduction in 2019. So we're comfortable, we're accustomed to that. We have very strong guidance from the SEC and from the NGX on that. It is a lot of work, but it's what you're required to create the trust for the public and for institutional investors to really put money behind this company. So those are the positives. I'm very satisfied with the outcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And a quick follow-up question on that: like, how did you that successful? Obviously, you mentioned that you oversubscribed on some of your latest issuance. How did you see that capital has really further your business in terms of growth, either within Nigeria or in the region?
So what I think it does, like I said, I mean, our sale of shares, listing by introduction and the sell down by MTN Group was never about raising capital for the business. The business is very comfortable with its current capital structure, balance sheet. As you may know, we've had, I think, broken some records in terms of bond issuances, etc. What it has helped is to do a few things: institutionalize MTN Nigeria as a Nigerian entity. So we are, I believe, touch wood, I believe we are really firmly accepted that this is a Nigerian company that's going nowhere. So that's one of the things that it did. It reinforces the perception towards investors around our governance structures, governance, compliance, risk management. If we can go through a very rigorous process regulated by the SEC for this public offer, for the initial listing by introduction, and all the other activities on the capital market, I think it gives a lot of comfort to institutional investors around the quality and governance of the company. And that reflects not just on MTN Nigeria as its own listed entity, but also on the majority shareholder MTN Group. So coming off an Africa Investor Conference last week and meeting, I think, probably 25 to 30 very large institutional investors, right. The discussions that we had around our presence on the capital market, the public offer, etc., really gave them a lot of assurances of where we are. And that confidence is what you need to attract investment into Nigeria and attract investment. Thank you so much.
Excellent. My understanding, can you guys hear me? Whoever is not speaking, mute. Thank you. You have, my understanding is that your listing was, compared to MTN has been quite recent. Do let us know what were your benefits with regards to your listing on the NGX, what was your experience so far?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sela. And just to also stand on existing protocol, as it were. allow me a bit of inflections just for the benefit of our listeners, is also to say that we have been an unlisted business for more than 2 decades. Primarily, we built this business for more than 2 decades. And of course, recently we became listed on the exchange. This became very important for us. And if we are to speak about the pre-listing experience and the post-listing experience as it were till today, we are actually in a very good position to share our experience with possibly businesses that are still thinking of whether to or whether or not. And so in terms of the positives and the benefits, I would say there are many for us as a business. But however, let me just summarize them in 4 key buckets. The first one for us would be around democratization of our business in terms of public participation. What we have seen at the earlier time of our debut is the fact that we've come with a brand that investors generally have seen to be promising. And what we saw that in the first 3 weeks of our listing by introduction on the exchange, our share price growth actually contributed to the bullish run that the exchange experienced within that space of time. We saw our share price growth at about 66%. We listed 18 billion shares primarily at 14 naira as it were. And then with a 66% growth in over a period of 3 weeks and more. And today, I think it's stabilizing at over and above 30% as it were. What that's primarily demonstrated to us is that we're beginning to see investors' confidence in our business, and the exchange primarily provided this platform. Added to that also is the fact that our shareholders' growth is currently at about 400% when compared to the time we listed on the exchange. That's really also demonstrates the fact that more and more people are watching out for us, and thanks for being on the exchange platform to be able to give access to intending investors, both private and all of that. The second benefit for us is also looking ahead in terms of our strategy around growing our business and expanding. So we believe that the platform will present to us opportunity to raise capital, to fund our business growth, and of course our expansion plans as it were. Again, let me emphasize here, we are a food business, and as you know, food is very critical to the human existence. So of course, it's very important that we continue to live to that, to the challenges that food insecurity will continue to bring to bear. The third point for us is around corporate governance and sustainability. The Nigerian exchange is a platform where compliance is a key focus. And what that's actually done for us as a business is to make us to step change our positioning in terms of compliances to corporate governances and sustainability. And again, lastly, brand visibility. What we have also equally benefited, being on the exchange, is our exposure to both local and global investors, and particularly market analysts. What's happening all over and above that is the fact that we see highlights around our business being a leading player in the food business and FMCG as it were. Of course, our propositions around delivering quality products remains very there. And also, with our recent publicized financials, we can see a lot of headlines around our debut, okay, which also with mentions around most profitable food business based on the numbers that we have publicized recently also regarding our financials, with very strong growth in both top line and bottom line. We will become one of the highest dividend payout company based on our financials again for the last year. We'll be looking at about 63 billion naira to pay out, and this is roughly around 90% of the profit that the company has generated primarily. Finally, recently also speaking about market analyst interest in our business, which again is a reflection of our positioning on the exchange. We're seeing regional medias like Business Insider highlighted also that based on our market capitalization of $2.5 billion, we have been headlined as one of the top most valuable business in the sub-Saharan Africa. This, we believe, actually further increases and will help to promote investors' confidence in our business as we journey into this space. So post-listing experiences, these are primarily what the benefits has been for us, and this is what the journey has been. So it's my own belief that our story will motivate unlisted companies, great businesses, as it were, to probably fast track their decisions to be on the exchange or jump on the exchange very quickly. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ayodele, and highlighting some of the great benefits that you have seen by listing on NGX. And I want to follow up with Funzo, please, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Standing Capital. Can you? We've heard from both Carl and Ayodele the great benefits of listing. Be it to further finance their business growth, like the UA, or simply enhancing some elements from what Carl has mentioned. Can you tell us what challenges has your business faced, since your listing? We would like to sort of hear a bit of the cons as well from your side.
Thanks, Salwa, and good morning, everyone. I think we play the capital market intermediary role, and advise companies trying to raise capital or undertake capital market activities. So interface, daily with issuers or potential issuers. And we're fortunate to have worked with both MTN and BOA Group on their listing. I would maybe just say in terms of challenges, I would probably say regulation. Yeah. Now one must acknowledge that, the NGX and the SEC have, really made significant progress in terms of regulation, and some of the innovation that we're seeing in the market or the successful transactions that have been executed have been driven by collaborative approach between capital market operators and the regulators, especially the NGX and the SEC. However, having said that, I mean, some of our rules and procedures are still the same as they were when I started my banking career 23 years ago. Right. You can imagine if the telco industry, still operates the same way it operated 23 years ago, you wouldn't have some of the innovation. So I would say that regulation is one area where the SEC, NGX, and other regulators can work together to make it easier for listed companies or companies that are trying to seek a listing, make it easier for them and make it a more attractive platform for these companies or these businesses.
Like, give maybe one example of one of the key elements that would require change by the local regulator in order to attract further listing. Just one very quick one.
I would say maybe I'll talk about time to market. It's still, if you're still trying to raise capital, it still takes a significant amount of time to, raise equity capital. We've tried to collapse the process, but the reality is that it's still going to take you at least 4 to 6 months to start and complete an equity capital market transaction. And if you look at if you contrast that with, so if you're trying to undertake a strategic corporate action, trying to buy a business, you'd rather go to the loan market where you can complete a transaction in a month, as opposed to coming to raise equity capital because you're pressed for time. And you can use regulation to fix that.
Listen, I think we just have another 5 minutes. Unfortunately, I think our time has had a little bit eaten up. So I'll go straight to some of the key elements we need to talk about, which are environmental, social, and governance. Everybody knows that there's a huge trend with regards to impact investing. So there's this huge, what we call like the green liquidity. How does some of the issuers tap into these green opportunities? And I would like to hear from perhaps actually all of you. And if I could start with, Carl and Ayodele, is what does your business does to attract this? I mean, perhaps let's start with Ayodele, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Stella. I think for us as a business that looks into the future growth and expansion, as it were, we do recognize the importance of ESG-based financing. We also do acknowledge the fact that it's one of the product line for the exchange, the Nigerian exchange, precisely. And we see opportunity to harness these for, of course, our business expansion as well as our growth projects, as it were. However, as a major player in the Nigerian food business and aligned with what I said, and also playing a very key role in the agricultural value chain, we, on our beats, are clear about the compliance requirement for ESG. So to this end, we focus on implementing an enhanced environmental management system that ensures that our impacts on the environment, for instance, is within the regulatory limits or protecting our operational ecosystems, and while we also protect the climate as it were. Added to that also is continually promoting and supporting the human and national development, prioritizing accountability around environment and social initiative, as well as good corporate governance, of course, to our business. Our strategy primarily is also aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as a business that is into food manufacturing or plays largely in the food value chain, our core SDG driver is SDG 12, which is around responsible consumption and production. And part of our stewardship is centered around 3 sustainable pillars around energy, economy, of course, for business, and also creating value for all our stakeholders and the environment. But over and above that is primarily driving towards this disposition to ensure that at the point when we will activate or we will assess these opportunity, we are ready and compliant and ready to get a go in that space.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'd like to ask Aruna, who is the Chief Executive Officer of CSCS, how can the Nigerian exchange further improve its value proposition? And we'd like to focus right now just on listed companies.
Thank you, Selua. Again, once again, even with the panel, you could see the sequence of discussions that will occur. My friend Carl Turiola forgot to CSCS in the change of things that have happened in the new that of course. It's just like Selua almost forgot that I was in the panel. Reminded. But as a CSD, we don't seem to do the work and we move on. So to be honest, Selua, having done 5 years at the exchange, driving listing, and then having been on the corporate finance side from the deal origination back in the day, and also sitting where I am at CSCS, the first thing we should always do is to ask, what do companies want? That's the first question. If you want to give value proposition to companies, you have to ask them yourself, what are they looking for? And I think it's been mentioned across everywhere, which is that they want to raise capital. They want liquidity. They want to do it very quickly. They want it to be cheaper than the alternative. That's basically what companies are looking for. And then if you answer these 4 or 5 questions in the format in which the structure is put for our market, see a totally perspective. But then more importantly is, this is my belief, and I think I share this with the current exchange, is that and I might get short for this, by the way, you can't have 1,000 people coming to sit in a physical place to trade. That era is gone. It's 17th century system. What you need to do is move away from what it is, because you're looking for liquidity, don't forget that. And liquidity is participation. And then of course, the capacity of the intermediaries. For sure, I hear you when you say there's regulation, but there's also capacity. When you take things to regulators that are incomplete because certain things are missing because of the knowledge of what's supposed to be done, it's delayed. So it's across board that we need to improve certain things. Turnaround time, you're right. The guy can go to a bank and raise money in 6 weeks or 4 weeks once documentation is correct. But then it takes longer at the capital market. And yes, we need to streamline those processes like the DG has said. Yes, we need to compress it. Yes, we need to don't duplicate things. But more importantly is, let's ask ourselves, What do issuers want? What is Carl looking for? We constantly kept asking Carl, what's the value? He says, I'm not looking for capital, but there's something he's looking for in the market, which is achieved, which is democratizing his shareholding. Others are looking for raise capital. Others are looking to de-risk. So bringing all these things together and putting the right, things across not just the exchanges, but intermediaries, regulators, ourselves, in solving the issue of issuers is where you see a market. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aruna. And it's, some of the elements that some of the panelists have mentioned, actually, I see it in some of the, I was just scrolling as you were talking on some of the participants' questions, and time to market, one of them said, it is frustrating, exclamation points. So it is clear. Others have said there are potentially other companies in Nigeria that would come to Nigeria. Some have mentioned Etisalat and others, and that could come to the market and create further participation. Now, okay, all of that said, I want to go back to one of the elements, Haruna, you have mentioned, and I think we will close with that question, is first of all, on a greater participation from the investors community. We know the institutional investors are quite here. The retail investors is the toughest part. So the question is like, how do you attract them? We have also heard from the speech from the Honorable Minister Zainab Ahmed just earlier on, who mentioned technology as a driving force for growth. So the question here, basically to everybody, and I perhaps like Ayodele, because we had a little brief on that, to start answering the question, do you think technology can further leverage, can further attract more investors' participation, particularly retail investors in Nigeria? And why not looking at greater participation for the youth? Because we know that behavior and so on is really digital. Therefore, how do you capitalize on that to further attract investors? So Ayodele, what's your view on that? And after that, I'd like everyone's point of view very quickly, and then we will have to close and go to the question from the participants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you once again, Stella. I think the simple answer to this is that it's a yes, technology is key. Today we're in the world, we're in the industry 4.0 era, where everything is driven by smartness, and smartness means technology, as it were. It means we need to do things in a more agile and quicker way. I do know that pre-listing, one of the things the exchange have done very well with us, it's basically around using technology. Perhaps also with the advent of COVID and the need to rely more on technology. Now bringing it back home in terms of retail expansion and deepening participation in the market. Today, the youth population are taking over, and I think in their generation, as it were, they want things as quickly as possible. So I think that products that can be technologically driven, that can allow participation for the youth, is very important in this space. And I'll break it down, bring it down home. And I think for the exchange, more needs to be done in terms of engaging the public, centered around creating more, closing the gap around knowledge gaps, and of course, doing more roadshow. And I think also the youths, in this case, we need to catch them young. Perhaps we need to go back to the era of stock exchange club that we have in schools, engage them, and then also begin to let them see the importance of what the capital market it's all about as they grow in their age. Finally, it's also around investing out of the market. The youth today wants their money as quickly as possible. Of course, if they can invest now and get returns tomorrow and continue to invest, they want to see it. We've seen that yo-yo type of thing. So I think that products that can help to bring, promote decisions making, engage the youth more, and all of that, technology-wise, and all of that will be very good. Thank you.
Okay, Ayodele, I'm sorry, I want to stop because I know we don't have that much time, and I really want to hear from our communication guy on the panel, Carl. So what's your view in terms of increasing investors' participation around retail and leveraging more technology?
So look, first of all, let me recognize my brother Haruna Jallo Waziri and plead him to keep my salaram. Forgive me for not recognizing him at the start. Let me tell you what we did, and we were 139% subscribed in our public offer.
Okay.
We went on a roadshow, and many people on this call, including Haruna, Timi, Funshaw, split into various teams, etc. And we visited, I personally visited 8 locations across Nigeria. My team was spread in every state capital, doing person-to-person roadshows and educating people about what the capital market can do for you. I don't want to make this an MTN session, but we did speak to our plans, our success, etc., etc. And I think that had an impact, and the more of those that we do, the better. But in the world of digital and information that we stand in, leveraging on the digital ecosystem to really educate people around the benefits of the capital market is absolutely critical. And the capillarity that has been created by a lot of digitization, which the CSTS has done, has really, really driven confidence, but it's something which you build over time. So I remember a lady in Enugu who complained when we were doing our roadshow about not receiving dividends from previous investments, etc. But these are legacy issues that happened 12, 15, 20 years ago. But with your CSCS account number, we helped her sort that out, and she got all of our shares credited to accounts, her outstanding dividends, etc., etc. And part of the confidence is using the digital system, the immediate disbursement of dividends and proceeds of share sales into customers' accounts really builds a lot of confidence around the stability of the stock exchange. We must remember, people on this call understand capital markets perfectly well. But when you're on a roadshow in Sokoto and in Damaturu and in Ile-Ife, etc., there's a lot of understanding which hasn't been baked into the system, and perhaps even starting to program some of that education around capital markets into the curriculum of education as we evolve is a critical part. But in the digital age, that's the easiest route to educate people about this, but we must consistently, all of us, the listed entities, the regulators, spokespeople like the NESG, et cetera, continue to create confidence, particularly around retail investors, as to the governance of these businesses, as to the safety of their investments, et cetera, et cetera. If I may take the opportunity, Selwa, you did speak about ESG and ESG-based financing. I think the drive for ESG goes a lot further than ESG-based financing. Capital flows are going to go disproportionately towards ESG progressive companies. And there's a shareholder letter in North America of companies with over $2 trillion assets under management that have spoken to their intention on this. And that is because it's become very clear that if we don't fix some of the fundamental problems in our society, no matter how successful you are, the wider issues in society will bring corporates down. And that's why MTN specifically has our shared value within our Vision 2025. And I'll speak to 2 quick parts of that. One is gender balance. By 2030, we will have gender balance across all levels of the organization, from the board right to the bottom. That means 70% of our recruitment has to be women from now to then. We've declared, put a stake in the ground, 2040 net zero emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3. That means everybody in our supply chain needs to comply to that, and that is a lot of heavy lifting and investment. But how do we make Nigerian capital markets more attractive for green investors? I think really sustainability reporting is critical, and in some way, some form of sustainability tracking of companies across Nigeria will really help this. And rather than focus on where the company is today, because we're coming from a long way back.
By sustainability tracking, do you mean having an index, or what are you referring to specifically? An index.
Yeah. Okay. Rather than some form of index, which really shows how progressive. But rather than focus on where the companies are today, because we're coming from a long way back. Gender imbalance, there's an educational system, cultural issues, emissions, public power supplies, and issues. But rather than tracking where companies are today, the progress that they've made in the last 12 months. So who is getting the trajectory? I think that recognizes and rewards companies that are progressing as fast as possible, and they will see the capital fly towards them as a consequence.
Follow-up question, Carl, on that, and the reporting is absolutely it's key, right? So if you don't have reporting, investors are not going to be able to make informed decisions based out of London, New York, or even Lagos. So how would you incentivize, especially for areas that are, let's say, voluntary reporting? If it's mandatory reporting, that's absolutely fine. But if it's like voluntary reporting, adding extra information that will provide the market greater insight, how would you incentivize those issuers to comply first with the reporting and second to report more? Like, what one example? Because I'm pretty sure some guys at the NGX will struggle with that right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a carrot and a stick situation. So I think we need the stick from the NGX and the SEC to ensure that some minimum standard of sustainability reporting is included in the annual financial report. But the carrot, that's the brilliance of free market economics. Capital will flow to the people that have a better sustainability program and are executing on it, not greenwashing. And that's the carrot. And once you see the share price, and if you look at a lot of more liquid capital markets, you will see that sustainability focused organizations actually have over time a better return. It will happen by itself.
It is proven, and there's a lot of studies that came out that ESG companies have actually done pretty well. So it is not necessarily something that will hold you back as a business, but on the contrary, it will help you grow. So thank you so much. I would like to get just one last comment from Funzo on that, which is just as a reminder, looking at attracting retail investors and leveraging a technology for that. If you can please, let us know what you think around this point.
Yeah, I'll say that it's already happening, and you use technology to fix two sides, the supply side and the demand side. And on the demand side, what you really need to do in addition to technology is awareness. And, with the MTN public offer, that has dealt with the awareness. And Carl talked about roadshows in major cities. Retail investors who've participated, the next is return. And retail investors who've participated in MTN as well as Boa Foods would have seen some appreciation in their capital, and they would tell their friends. So you've dealt with awareness, and then technology then deals with the issue of convenience. And the collaboration on the MTN public offer, for example, where you use technology to access retail investors, that can be built upon and taken to the next level, which then deals with the issue of convenience. And on the supply side, time to market, there's a role for technology to play even in the application and regulatory approval processes in simplifying it. For example, if you were going to check in 20, 30 years ago, you had to go to an airport. In today's world, you check in online and you can stroll an hour and a half to your flight. So how do we use principles of addition and subtraction to actually revolutionize that process? The last is ease. So that would deal with the ease at which companies can access the market and also time to market.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, really great comment from one of the participants. Actually, it's more comment than a question. He did raise, or she, it's anonymous, that the T+3 transaction actually did not help with settling any transactions as the youth and usually retail participations want things done right now. So that, again, I guess it's another area that when technology is brought forward, how would you implement a T+0? And I'm pretty sure there's technologies that can allow that. But from a regulatory standpoint and the exchange, these are areas that could be further explored. So on that,
Salwa, I just wanted to add one quick point. The last point is there's innovation from the capital market operators, and capital market operators need to get to a point where they're actually introducing some of the innovations. Now, what do you need to enable that? Today, most capital market operators are barely struggling to survive. So, from a regulation standpoint, we have to look at things like removing the cap on fees that capital market operators can charge so that they can hire the people and bring in the technology that helps take us to the next level as a capital market.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, on that note, thank you very much.
there's one aspect I think everybody has mentioned, and I think it's important that I throw this in, if you don't mind. The issue of onboarding of clients is very important. How do you onboard them? How quickly do you do it? It's also a catalyst to how you see retail, what's it called, participation. For example, if you look at why Ponzi schemes do very well in Nigeria, why do you think they do very well? The onboarding of a Ponzi scheme can be done almost immediately.
Okay.
Via phone call, via text, via WhatsApp, via Facebook, you can actually onboard. Now, we need to look at that amongst other things that everyone has said around, technology being an enhancer, through the supply and the demand chain, and also as well as, how it can be resolved from a trading and settlement perspective. But we have to also look at that. Thank you. I should just throw this in. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Arno, for that added insight. So I'd like to again wrap up and just thank all the panelists. It's been a great discussion. I hope we have shed some light to the listening participants from all over the world. Thank you, Carl, Ayodele, Pimzo, and Haruna, and thanks to the NGX again. Back to that.
Thank you so much. Salua, thank you so much. I'm sure you've got a whole lot of big guys on your hands on this particular panel, so they've got a whole lot to knock together. And just to add one of the comments coming through from of our participants asking if the Nigeria market is ready to introduce margin lending to encourage new investors to come into the market. Quite a whole lot of questions still in the inbox. Thank you, everyone, for this very fantastic first panel. Thank you, Salwa, for doing a very great job to the CEO at MTN, at Boa Foods PLC, at Stomach IBTC, and of course, my very Haruna Jallo Waziri at the CSCS. Don't worry, the CSCS is the unseen hands that move the markets and make sure the logistics clearinghouse. So you are duly recognized, Jallo Waziri and the rest of your team at the CSCS PLC. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the second panel very quickly, and that will be discussing critical areas and policies affecting listed companies and capital formation. Now we're bringing in a whole lot of other big names in here. So I'm going to yield to my senior colleague, Ogo Okiti, who is the Managing Director of Business Day Media Limited. Dr. Okiti, I'm going to allow you to introduce your own panel. And I'm sure you've got some big names like Igodalo and the rest on your hands. So you've got to deal with it, by the way. Let me leave the floor to you. You've got about 20 minutes. Let's see how far you can run.
Boss Namafai, thank you so very much for that introduction, except that you lied that I'm a senior colleague. I am a junior colleague of yours. So very quickly, we haven't got much time.
Thank you.
A very, very warm welcome to the second panel conversation of this NGX CEO Roundtable, which broadly looking at creating the enabling ecosystem for accessing capital from the Nigerian capital market. In this session, we are going to focus on critical areas and policies affecting listed companies and capital formation in Nigerian capital market, policy reforms, next steps, and action plans. I am Owo Okiti, as I've been introduced, Managing Director of Business Day. I have with me on this panel very experienced and eminently qualified individual, lawyers, investor, market players, regulator, to speak on the topic. Very quickly, I have Ike Chioke, who is the Group Managing Director, Afri Invest, and also the President of the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria, Aswe Igoralo, founding partner, Bangu and Igodalo, and Chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. You don't get them bigger than that. Abbas Abdulkadir, Health Registration Exchanges and Market Infrastructure, Innovation of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and of course, the last but not the least, Owen Omokiafo, who is the President and Group CEO of Transnational Corporation. Very quickly, I will go straight to, first to Ike. As the President of the Association, so let me first of all give background to these questions. I thought I had 35 minutes, now I have 25. So I'm going straight to it. As the President of the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria, what are the major policy constraints that you currently face in trying to expand the access to capital in the market today? I mean, you speak from your own experience. You've been on this market for as long as I can remember. What are the policy constraints that you see today? Just tell me, and I'm sure the people that should make those changes are listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kitty, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to stand on all existing protocols. I think very quickly, when I think of the issues the industry, that is the Association of Issuing Houses of Nigeria, face as a trade group, perhaps the biggest challenge will be time to market. Time to market for transactions. And you hear it from all trade members, where issuers, potential issuers, would decide perhaps not to come to the market because the conditions and timetable for approvals will stretch far beyond the event that they want to actually use that capital to do. And so may then decide to go first to the bank market and then come back to us to refinance. So at that point, you really lost a good opportunity to introduce new participants into the market. The second and quite fundamental issue, which Funsho had mentioned, is also the fees chargeable. I've had the privilege of having worked in the US capital markets environment, as well as the United Kingdom capital markets, now before coming back home to Nigeria. And I do find that whereas in the bond market, the fees can be very thin because you do quite a lot of bond issuances, in the billions of naira on a daily basis, and the trading of bonds run in the trillions of naira. On the equity market side, because of the nature and of diligence required, it takes a lot more effort to prepare the company, to write the story, to make sure investors are protected. The regulator here has imposed effectively the same kind of fee threshold for equity transactions as it is for bond transactions. Whereas in the United States, for example, an IPO could easily be costing the issuer as much as 7%, but 5% would be an average fee for investment banks to charge for an initial public offering. In Nigeria, where I believe that the sweet spot for bringing transactions into the market would be sort of deals in the 5 to 10 billion naira size. If you're charging 1% fees, that's 15 million, and you have 2 or 3 parties on the transaction, that's maybe 15 million a piece, and you're going to run this project for 6 to 9 months, you can see immediately it is not a profitable transaction. Therefore, most advisors would then prefer to go to the bigger ticket transactions like the MTNs, where the deal size is 100 billion rather than 5 billion, or the Dangotes or the Boas. And this then effectively crowds out the smaller issuers from the market. And this is a point we've made time and time again to our regulators, but somehow they seem to mix up cost of transaction in terms of secondary market trading costs with the cost of the primary issuance when you're actually bringing a fresh story into the market. And I think that as a growing economy, we need to actually, break those two apart and think of the process of bringing new issuers into the market is actually a lot of work. Different from people who are just, do repeat issuances. They're already there in the system. They've met the compliance standards of both the NGX and the SEC, and they're filing their documentation periodically as well needed.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on you. I will come to Houseway and the rest of the panel shortly, but I'm going to stay on you, especially because I think you may be leaving very shortly. When you say time to market, who is slowing down the time to market? Who is slowing down? What is the process slowing it down? That's number one.
Let me
just finish.
And I hate to run my regulator, but over the last year, the Association of Issuing Houses has worked closely with one of our key regulators to compress the time for bringing debt transactions into the market from about 2 months to bring it under 20 days.
Okay.
And effectively, we've had committee meetings, we've sat, negotiated, engaged, everything is ready for approval. I won't tell you who the regulator is, but it's now left to us to announce, and we've been ready to announce this to the market for at least 3 months. We've done a lot of work.
Okay.
But for some reason, they have not been able to just agree to release this information to the market. So actually most of the challenges come from the regulatory side. There are concerns, like Jallo mentioned, in terms of certain issuing houses that perhaps don't prepare their paperwork in the appropriate level of standard, and therefore are now trying to force a deal through the regulator and claiming, oh, you're delaying the transaction, when indeed the document was not comprehensively submitted. And there are penalties for those kind of negligence, situations. Well, for the most part, most people know what to do. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so very much. Aswe, let me come to you. I mean, as a lawyer, and I believe you have advised many companies in relation to approaching the market and their market ambitions. And of course, you are also the chair of a major economic think tank in Nigeria. So what are the policies that you think have frustrated you over these many years? And why are they slow? Why are we so slow to changing policies and guidelines and things that we think will boost and improve our market?
Thank you very much, Dr. Kitty. And I'd like to thank the NGX for inviting me. And I'd like to thank everybody for participating on this roundtable. I think I talked about a few things, and on the earlier panel, Funsha also talked about a few things. And we've talked about the issues of time to market. We've talked about the issues of cost. But I'd like to first start by appreciating the effort that the NGX and the SEC and the other regulators are trying to bring to bear. But unfortunately, I don't think that we've done enough. And I think there's room to do a lot more at the broad level and at the micro level. Because we don't have time, I'm not going to hit on all the points, but I'm going to do a quick overview. And let me start from the micro level. We've been talking about time to market, and I think we can help that situation by doing a few simple things, soft issues. I know Ike has talked about the AIHN members running into committees with the regulator and things like that. But I think the time we spend with the regulator is a bit too long, especially if parties have brought in all the documents that are required on time, appropriately, everything complete. I think we should have a process, and I know the SEC started that process at a time where there was a timeline for approvals to be completed. Can I suggest to the SEC directly that if in 3 weeks we haven't received our approvals, can we access a commissioner or the DG to discuss? So we do simple things like that so that we can understand why after 3 weeks we still don't have our approvals. Can I also suggest to the NGX, because the NGX in the queue of regulators is somehow at the bottom of the pile because they seem to have super regulators. Can I suggest to the NGX that as often as possible, but definitely annually at the beginning of every year, you try and get a collaboration of the Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister of Trade, DG SEC, FCCPC, Vice Executive Chair, get them all seated and understand the economic objective specifically for that period. And based on that economic objective, get them on board to assist with certain issues. Number one, tax exemption issues. We had the tax exemption 2012 to 2022 order, which I think in that 10-year period did a lot to raise activities on the capital markets because those activities were tax exempt, issuance of bonds, etc. And I thought one of the things that we would do critically was ensure a renewal of that order for another 10 years. And it didn't happen. I think we need to look at that. There's an amendment to the Companies and Allied Matters Act, the section 142 there, that specifies that before I can raise capital, I can sell equity, I need to offer to all of my existing shareholders. That's some preemption right for a public entity. It doesn't make sense So it makes it difficult for me to come to the market. So we need to look at all of these issues. And then the big elephant in the room, which really is the cost. And Ike has looked at cost from the perspective of fees earned by professionals. And that is fundamental, because one of the things we're seeing now is that the diligence, the training, the effectiveness, the efficiency, the quality of staffing of operators and professionals has diminished very greatly, because it's not attractive to be a capital market operator anymore. But for me, as important is the issue of the fees charged by the regulators. And I'll just, in closing, talk about one transaction, and I'll run through it. And it's not an imaginary transaction, real life transaction. Not too long ago, in the last 2 years, you paid 385 million to FCCPC. You paid 289 million to SEC processing fees, 339 million to CSCS. And the exchange, you pay 574 million. You pay stamp duty at crossing 306 million. You're paying nearly 2 billion. That is preposterous. So we need to find a way to deal with all of these issues. If we want companies to access the market, if we want to create jobs. So NGX is good, you've brought us together, but I think you also need to sit with the other regulators. The issue of the right share capital, we need to review it, and it's in CAMA. So those little things that make it easy for people to access the capital, to access the capital market, and it takes too long. We need to be able to collapse accessing the capital market to definitely no more than 4 weeks to 6 weeks, definitely no more. I can go on and on, Doc, but let me stop here for now. I see you've disappeared.
No, I'm here. So
okay,
thank you so very much. I mean, there's a common trend now between the response from Ike and of course Aswe. We're talking about time and we are talking about cost. So it's about time and money. We're talking about time and money. So let me come to Owen. And because you manage a company that's already listed on the, so I want to hear from your home perspective. What are the issues that as a company, I mean, perhaps you want to raise additional capital and you are thinking, oh, this is just not a wise time, or this is not wise given this or that is happening on the market. Please give me your perspective. What are the issues?
Good morning again, everyone. And let me also stand on existing protocol. Let me commend the NGX for doing this. It's a good platform for all of us to speak. And I'm seeing different perspectives, even from looking at the chat box and the Q&A. It's interesting that, that you think you have a problem, it's only you facing it. Then you hear other people and they're talking around the same thing. The issues that have already been raised, they're here. Timeliness. And on the back of that timeliness, I'll just expand a little. I think both Ike and Aswe touched on it. The streamlining of the process. Beyond just you find that you want to list, you have a number of documents you have to file, even if you've been there before, if I might just say so, even if you've been there before, because even if you're doing a rights issue, you're going through quite a lot as well. So you have that streamlined process. You're talking to a number of bodies before you get to where you need to get to. So we do need to streamline the process and make it less cumbersome. Because indeed, when we've gone through the time and everything, then what your critical need was at that point in time is gone. Or you may have had to go and find another solution to that problem. And more often, that solution might not necessarily be the best thing for the company, right, long term, but you have to first survive short term before you begin to look medium, long term, saying it very practically. Like during the COVID time, for example, we're still in the pandemic, but specifically I'm talking about 2020, when, no one really knew what was going on in 2020. The costs, I was so happy when Asper gave one example of 2 years ago. Yes, the fees are quite high. The costs are high that you have to pay. And you now look at it as well, oh, I'm going to the capital market because I need, I need to raise funds that are suitable for what I need to do. And the fees you have to pay, the cost is just discouraging. We now have the situation now that the 10-year window has lapsed, we're now looking at the taxes as well that we are paying, or the taxes that are being charged at this point in time, creating further, should I say, challenges or discouragement. Let me pick something else that's quite practical, but you know, Transcorp is listed, but we have a subsidiary that is also listed, and that's Transcorp Hotel PLC, okay? We need to take a look at it and say, how can you encourage parent companies to list their subsidiaries, noting ownership structures and all of that? How do we do it in line of even the float requirements? Is Nigerian market developed enough to just do a, let me say, a one size fits the tier you're in? I don't want to say all, because I'm sure Timmy was waiting for me to say one size fits all, so he can jump in and tell me that there's primary market, secondary tier, and all of that. No. Even if you find yourself in the tier one, you're still different companies in there with different levels, different ownership structures, different characteristics. If you just pick one thing and is it going to work? Let's look at further looking at the market. We are aware, we're in this country. We know that the market is illiquid. In the past 10 years, I think just about four IPOs or so that has come up. The last one being the MTN one. And just like Carl, I was really delighted to see that 78% of the subscribers were women. And I can't remember how many percent again, under 40. But it was just really encouraging, especially for that under 40, because it means that they're still looking at the market. So with this illiquidity in the system, and you're battling the float requirements. You tell me, meet the float requirements. Of course, I want to meet the float requirements. Every year I'm having discussions. I'm talking to my advisors, paying a fee, by the way, paying a fee to the advisors on it, engaging with the various regulators. If we come to the market to try and address this, who's going to take it? How active is the market right now? Although, in fairness, I would say in the past, for a while now, seeing more trades, but we do need to still have more activities in the market. We need to bring more people to the market, more businesses, I mean to say, to the market. I was discussing with the CEO of United Capital Securities and engaging on this second tier. I'm a large corporate, but if we look at Nigerian business platform today, how many large corporates are there compared to the SMEs? We have a lot of tech firms that are coming up, startups, different, maybe less than 5 years companies. Are we able to create policies or address existing policies that will reduce the barrier to entry? Because it's, the entrepreneurs that are coming up, how many of them can actually access a bank loan? How many? Not so much of them. But are we able to develop products that can let them come onto the capital market? I'm not going to say I'm an expert product designer for capital market. No, we have others on the call that can do that. Yeah. But we need more businesses, and the businesses we have today, quite a proportion of them are in that SME space. We bring them on, that creates more activity. It creates more activity on the market, and with the more activity, you get more people talking about the market, more interest coming up in the market. Because really, one of the things we say is we need to have the NGX should create, there should just be more interest, right? More interest, market perception. Market perception should be stronger. We need to even maybe discuss, one of the things we should discuss is how the dividend perception in the country, right? Companies that pay higher dividends, of course, everyone wants to run there and all of that, but we don't even tend to, we don't even look at, should I say, return on equity. How much did you buy your share and what is the return you're getting? Those percentages are not looked at. Then we also look at it, okay, sometimes coming to the market is almost, you end up to some extent where you're not getting valued properly. You say, okay, this is the stock price that the market, this is what the market is pricing me at. But if you just take a look at my books only, you can see that the market, if I just do market valuation times number of shareholders, but you actually just look at the books, immediately you see that there's a valuation mismatch. So these are things that actually would, should I say, discourage at the same time encourage if addressed, and then we get more participation in the market.
Okay, Owen, thank you very much. By the way, I am not seeing Abbas Abdulkadri. Is he on this panel? Is it?
Sure. I'm here.
Oh, thank you, sir, because I really need you here. I'm delighted to have you, and I like the picture of your background. I mean, I decided to speak with Ike, Aswe, and of course, Owen before you, because they are largely players. I mean, you are a regulator. So I decided to come to you last on this, at least at this point. What are the policies that you are looking at changing at the moment? I mean, I am not saying, so many government people, we will look into this, we will look into that. No. I am not interested in what you will look into. I believe you assumed this position in the last 1 year. What are the policies that you or SEC is looking at changing at the moment? And let me try and broaden that question a bit. If you look at all the answers given by Ike, Aswe, and Howen, they revolve around timing, they revolve around fees, around cost, around return on equity. One thing that is missing, or the glue that glues all this together, is the macroeconomic stability environment. And that is important in raising capital. That is not entirely your job, because the Ministry of Finance and of course the government as a whole is responsible for some of that measures. But the one that you are responsible for, what are the policies that you are currently reviewing and the changes that you bring to the market?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Okiti. Good morning, participants. It's really a pleasure for me to be part of the discourse. And I think it's good that I listen to Ike and Aswe, raising all those issues. So to talk on your issue, or to straight to your point about what are the policies, I think the SEC has really been at the forefront in terms of advocating certain policies or policy changes to enhance listing in the market. And if I can just touch on at the macro level, some of these issues that we have been talking about, or advocacy that we have been doing, even before the Petroleum Industry Act, I know we have been going to the bodies like NCC, BPP, and even the NNPC to see how we can be able to attract companies under their own sector to come and list in the market. So, but talking about our own internal issues, and I think I will talk straight on these two issues, policy or regulation around cost of issue, time to market, and other regulation that we have in place that will attract or enhance listing. Let me start by saying that the SEC has, in the recent past, even streamlined this issuance process to attract issuers to come to the market. What do I mean by that? We start with the NGX, that time NSC, to now streamline the documentation requirement. And we say that, look, the first thing is, let's approach this offer in this way. When an issuer is coming, the first point of call is the SEC. You want to register, even if you want to do listing by introduction. So those documentation, if they have been filed with the SEC, you don't need to file with the NGX, for instance. And then again, we now realize that even in terms of doing pre-inspection of those entities, we have a protocol of doing a joint pre-inspection, just to allow these kind of entities to now quickly get the transaction on track. Now, talking about time to market, cost of issue, this is a very key issue. And I know that what we did at the SEC, we didn't just sit down, and I think I want to correct this impression. The SEC didn't just sit down to come up with this to peg transaction costs. Market has been engaged, issuers were engaged as well, and input were received before the SEC even come up with this position. And what did we do further? We hear the Association of Issuing House, we sat with them, and we now said, look, let's look at it in this perspective. When you have a structured transaction, a transaction that is a structured product, that is a bit complicated and it entails a lot of parties, that curve in terms of transaction costs will not apply. But when you are doing a plain vanilla transaction, for instance, that is why that cap applies. Again, we didn't just, because we listened to the issuers, and the issuers are saying that, look, why can't we encourage more issuers to come to the market before you think about like deregulating the entire cost of issuance? So it's a discussion, and I know that it's something that we need to discuss further. On time to market, yes, we have been engaging the market players. There's a report that we have been working on, and I believe the Commission will very soon come up with a position with that in that respect. The whole idea is that it's a twin-way approach. If you are talking about time to market, we are talking about issue around even incomplete documentation. You can see that you can be going forth and back on a transaction, on a simple issue that ought to have been resolved at the point when you are even coming to fight that transaction. And of recent, we even engaged the association, and we did a kind of training on this, our checklist deem approval regime. Why are we doing this? Because we now realize the loophole. It's not only on the regulatory part, we have issues even on the operators, those that are packaging these offers. And our intention is that when we now implement this checklist, the next stage is to even look at launch and launch, which is LOLA. But it's a process, and I think it's something that we need to all collaborate to see that we have addressed that issue. Now, yes.
Thank you so very much, sir. But I'm going to stay on you just for about a minute or two more. I mean, sorry, forgive me, I'm a journalist. So I said, what are the policies that you are currently reviewing? I mean, right. Are you reviewing any at the moment?
Yes, I'm coming to that. Yes, that's the point that I just want to land on. Yes. Okay. So in terms of our policy that we're reviewing, we are reviewing the DG even mentioned the Investment and Securities Act. We're actually reviewing that act to now allow for even entities that were hitherto will not be allowed to list in our market to be incorporated. For instance, NEFZA, entities that are incorporated under a free trade zone. These are entities that by current act, they are not ordinarily eligible to raise money from the market or to be listed. So that is one area. The second area that we're looking at in terms of policy is about, encouraging this digital, innovation, digital offering, which we have adopted it in the ISA. And even right now, we have some rules that we have issued allowing digital offering to take place, because we realize that you cannot go along this traditional way of offering. And MTN offer is a very good example. In that one, we have even approved the e-offer platform, which was initiated by the NGX, and we're encouraging more to come on board. So in terms of policies, these are some of the policies that internally, but the other external dependencies, as I said, we'll talk about issue about incentive, talking about tax issue, or talking about other incentive, fiscal incentives, for instance. These are not within the FOB, but the SEC has been at the forefront. The tax exemption has elapsed, and we participated in this Finance Act committee, and we push for that extension. The pushback we got is we should allow the sun to set in before we now do a review and then make a case. We are doing that one. We have gotten input from even other stakeholders. We are still engaging the relevant authorities in that. In terms of the monetary policy, right now the Commission is even a member of MPC, and we can see that in terms of policy push around that monetary policy, since we have our own representative sitting on MPC, we can be able to really make a headway in that. And then the last issue that I'll mention, we have a high-level advocacy team, which is CAMI, Capital Market Implementation Committee. So that committee is the one that would really lead a high-level advocacy in conjunction with the SEC. So we're really doing a lot in terms of harmonizing our policies, addressing issues. And the last issue that I will touch on, as we touch on one key issue on the amended CAMA, which is Section 142, is a kind of anti-dilution prohibition, but it will deter companies from even coming to issue securities. That is one area that we're engaging the Corporate Affairs Commission to find a way around it so that we can be able to have companies coming on board. So those are some of the policies.
Yeah, I thank you so very much, sir. So very quickly, I think we are running out of time. I think I have just about 3 to 5 minutes left. I'm very, very grateful for those answers, and especially as the leader of innovations in SEC, I'm very grateful for the innovations that that is in the pipeline, and I believe that and expect that those things will materialize very soon. But I want to go back, especially to Ike and Owen. Aswe dealt extensively with what he would like to see, and it was very, very specific. So I appreciate that. As a journalist, I always appreciate specifics. So go back to Ike. What will you like to see? You have told me what the problems are. I understand them. So, okay, I would like to see this by so time. Give me one or two changes. For instance, if you ask me now, what do I want to see in Nigeria today? If like they were asking somebody, if you are a president for one day, what will you do? I will tell you, if I'm a president for one day, I will remove fuel subsidy. That is me. So, if you have the opportunity, what would you like to see change today?
One thing I'd like to see change is to remove the fee cap for bringing in initial public offerings and equity transactions into the market, particularly the fee cap for advisors. The fee cap, the sweet spot of the market for a growing economy like Nigeria will be transaction sizes of $10 to $20 million. And therefore, you can then bring a lot of middle-sized companies into the structure and platform to have the capital for growth. But that does not work. And I have law firms like Banwa Nikodalo that if you look at what they're supposed to get after doing intensive legal due diligence, it turns out to like something like 2 million naira based on fee caps, And so those things are one of the biggest disincentives for professional advisors to engage with the right companies and bring more issuances to the market. Because the more you bring issuances into the market, you actually then begin to address the issue that Owen raised about market liquidity. If it's just a handful of companies, and if you look at our market today, 6 companies are valued at over 1 trillion naira, and they account for 65% of the value of the entire market. Then you don't actually have enough interesting stories, that growth story that people want to buy in January and turn around in March and see that the shares are up 60%. You need to have those kind of things coming in all the time. And if there's one thing I would like SEC to do for us, is to disaggregate this cost of transaction and remove professional advisors from that cost. Because if I engage a client and tell them that it's going to cost you 5% of the capital, that's a private relationship between me and the client. It has nothing to do with the cost of the issue, And the same thing with the law firms. And I think you find that with competition, the market will settle at the right place. Yeah. Because if they say Upinvest is too expensive, they can go to Vertiva or go to Stanbic IBTC. And that's really an engagement that clients can do for themselves. They don't need the SEC to, wave a big rule and say this is what should be. Okay. That would be a great start.
Okay, thank you so very much. Owen, same to you very quickly. What would you like to see change?
Okay. For me, Ike has already taken some of the points they aligned. I really would like to see just more players in the market, because that's really what's going to create a vibrant market. It will address the market liquidity. It will create stories, because it's almost like a situation whereby the waves from others would lift you up as well.
Okay.
I would also like to see this year, please, this not next year, some more discussions and partnership around this float requirements, and some of the requirements, the compliance requirements on corporates from the regulators. So taking note of the situation of our market and the situation of the economy. These are facts that we're living and working within, and we need to look at clear policies that would align business growth and success to our current situation, not the policies that we had when things, we're not faced with some of the macroeconomic issues that we're facing today.
Sorry, Doc, let me quickly say something before you run away.
Go ahead,
I just want to continue from where Owen particularly stopped. And this is for Abbas, you are the czar, the regulatory czar. Certain things must happen. It's unattractive to come to the Nigerian market today. Major multinationals are choosing other markets if they have to play in Africa. Because I'm involved, I know, people come and they are forum shopping in Africa. And that is because it's too expensive. SEC is charging too much. you guys have to go back to review your fees substantially. When you talk about the cost of transaction, you guys are taking the chunk of the cost of transaction. You double dip. You take when we come to you directly, you take at the exchange point. So you've got to make up your mind. Do one and do less of one. There are overlaps. SEC, you have an overlap with the FCCPC on certain issues. You have to deal with it. We can't go to the FCCPC on one issue and come back to you on the same issue. You and the FCCPC have to sort each other out. You know, you talk about fairness and all of that, that's fine, but you sort each other out. It's not the market's business or the operator's business to be going all over the place to regulators. You know, so we need to be focused. We need to understand where we are on the development curve. And because of that, we're looking for job creation. We want to develop our economy. Our regulators must be fit for purpose. Our regulators must focus on developing an economy, deepening a stock exchange. They're not tax collectors. Stop behaving like tax collectors.
Okay, so on that very, very, very pleasant note, I want to end the conversation, this panel's conversation.
Sorry, before you end, can I just say?
Oh, yeah, okay, please go ahead, sir. I will always give regulator.
Thank you. I think just to talk, to respond to Aswe, I think those are issues that are well noted. And I know that we are still in conversation, especially the issue with FCCPC. I know we have been, but we can still do engagement, and I think we'll get in touch with all the stakeholders to get input. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you are watching, please, wherever you are, please give a round of applause for these gentlemen and a beautiful, beautiful lady. Thank you, Aichioke, Aswegalo, Abbas, Abdulkadi, and Owen Omagafu for your insight and, of course, for your time shared with me here this afternoon. On behalf of NGX, I thank you all. And I return to, I believe, my Oga at the very, very top in the media industry.
Dr. Okiti, thank you so much for holding this family meeting. You know, I thank the Nigerian Exchange Limited for arranging this family meeting. And I think we should be having this family meeting a whole lot more regularly. So I'm going to suggest to Temi Popola and his team, perhaps we should make this biannual every 6 months. So that perhaps we can do a bit of a clearing of some of the issues as quickly as possible, piggyback to the regulator, piggyback to everyone within the ecosystem, if necessary, the Ministry of Finance and others, perhaps the National Assembly, if there is a need. I think we've seen the market become a whole lot more robust. I spent 32 years of my life in the market. So I can tell everyone that there's been a whole lot of movement from where we were in the late 80s, early 90s to where we are now, the early 2020s. So there's been a whole lot of change in what the SEC had been, in what the areas in which the exchange has been. We've seen innovations. We've seen a whole lot of you, some of you have related with for north of 3 decades on the market. So I'm very happy that this conversation is continuing. The market has become a whole lot more robust and more dynamic than where we were 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades ago. So I think we need to pat ourselves on the back that, yes, we have. But again, we can do a whole lot more deepening. Many of the questions coming through from some of our participants in and around the world will be addressed by the Nigerian Exchange Limited. A couple of them have been cleared up as well. I also want to say that we got the the NICOM Insurance Commissioner also in on the panel, on the one of the participants. He's been listening in, and I'm sure the insurance sector is part of the conversation that everyone will taking everybody aboard. So the SEC has done a very great job. And for those of you who are issuers and market professionals and market participants in the market, I'm sure we are seeing a new level of things happening in the market. And I'm sure everyone is on board as to why the NGX put this roundtable together for us to harvest ideas and see how we're going to improve things moving forward. So that much I can say for now, but I want to thank everyone for being part of this CEO Roundtable. Let me allow Jude Chiemeka, who is the divisional head in charge of capital markets at NGX, to begin to sum it up for us. And of course, let me remind everyone that yes, the YouTube is where the Nigerian Exchange Limited is streaming this. So if you go on the YouTube a bit later, you will get the entire program available for you on the NGX YouTube. And if you want further questions, the Nigerian Exchange Limited corporate communication teams and other teams will be reaching out to you. I'm sure they've got everyone's details who's registered for this particular roundtable. Jude, where are you? You've got the floor.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to stand on already established protocols. First and foremost, I would like to express our appreciation to all the speakers and panelists for their valuable contributions. My deepest gratitude goes to all our participants for making our time to be with us today and helped to make it a successful event. As Africa's preferred exchange hub, NGX has key strategic focus along the following themes: scale and consolidation, diversification across the value chain, enhancement of new capabilities, and differentiation into unrelated businesses, all geared at leveraging organic and inorganic growth opportunities for expansion of our business across relevant business categories in order to increase our global competitiveness. The principal activities of the NGX are around the provision of facilities and access to public for the purchase and sale of securities. We have done this by building a very robust portfolio of products, which include equities, fixed income, exchange traded products, and recently derivatives. In addition, we'll provide licensing services, market data solutions, and ancillary technology services. Hearing and learning from our keynote speaker and panelists is a clear demonstration of the importance to regularly hear the views from industry experts and government representatives on how to create the right ecosystem that will help deepen our capital markets and the overall growth of the Nigerian economy. I am certain that the key takeaways from this webinar will further deepen our thinking and stimulate the much needed work to review the existing practices and policies to better align with emerging trends. We will summarize the key takeaways of this event, which will serve as the agent required to catalyze the required change to promote increased listings in our domestic market. Finally, my deepest thanks are, of course, reserved for my colleagues at NGX for their priceless contribution in putting together a smooth event. Please note that we will respond to all the questions posted on the chat that we are not able to take due to the challenge of time. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the day. Back to you, Bosin.
Jude, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Jude Chemeka, the divisional head in charge of capital markets at NGX Limited. Of course, Jude, I was beginning to see if I could just take one or two questions just as we begin to sum up. And this will go to any members of the panel, either the first panel or the second panel, but it was raised in issue of corporate governance raised by Asue I'm going to ask Asue Godalo if he's still there, the chairman of NESG and a renowned securities and corporate legal expert in terms of we need to review the corporate governance, current corporate governance for the capital market. What would you have in mind? Asue, are you still on the call, please? Okay, Asue must have dropped into another meeting. Anyone on the panel who would like to speak to that on corporate governance issue? Okay, I'm going to throw that to you, Jude.
Thanks, Bosin. The issue of corporate governance, if you think about it really from the conversation around investors, there are two sides to it. The issuers looking to raise capital, as well as the investors who are looking to invest in the products that the issuers are going to use. Capital certainly will flow to companies that have good governance and have good practices around how they manage their ESG related risk and the impact of those risks. So we believe that what we have heard today certainly will form the bedrock of ensuring that the added issue of corporate governance are enshrined in the processes and practices of corporates, largely in their own interest, as that will help to attract quality investors and significant investors that will help provide the liquidity that are looking in terms of the capital they want to raise from the market. Thank you.
Okay, and on the final note, to talk about T+3, some of the participants are asking if T+3 is a little bit long for them. They want T+0. For youths who want Insta, like one of the panelists says, some of them are onboarding quickly at the speed of light, according to Jello Waziri, the CEO at CSCS. So the easy entry, easy exit. So come easy, go easy. If you take that from James Hadley Chase novels of the early 60s, 70s, and all that. So, Jello Waziri, let me throw that to you. How quickly, the youths don't want to wait. They want to get in the morning and get out in the evening.
Boston, I totally agree with you. It's something that I've put as part that we have to do very quickly. And it's a very simple example. I asked my son, who is 21, this year, I said, why are you not participating in the market? He said, Dad, why would I buy something and wait 3 days to get value? Or would I sell something and wait 3 days to get my cash? I'm sorry, when you go and change it, I might think about coming back. The truth of the matter is, we have to go to minimum T+1 very quickly, minimum. And there's a committee market-wide that has been set up, is working on it. Some market stakeholders are pushing back on it because it doesn't work for them, but I'm thinking we will soon come to it, and I can guarantee you work is being done and we're almost there. Because this is, I mean, if you can transfer money instantly between one bank and the other, transfer money between Nigeria and any other countries abroad and get it within a couple of hours, why is our market not going to do that? So Temi and I have spoken about this thing. We're working on it. You will soon get some results, hopefully.
Great, that'll be good. Jello Waziri, I think you need to send Bad Boy to the SEC. Send him straight to the SEC. I think he needs to get in on the market. He's ahead of the curve. I think he's ahead of all of us, by the way. He wants to say it's T+0, and that's the way to go. Thank you, everyone. I want to say a very big thank you to the Nigerian Exchange Limited for arranging the 2022 NGX CEO Roundtable. It's been a very big family meeting. And of course, everyone listening, not just from within Nigeria, but from around the world who are interested in Nigeria's market. And the NGX has the gateway to Africa's capital markets for issuers, for participants, for solicitors, advisors, and everyone in between, and even for us who are professional journalists reporting on the market. I am Bosin Omofoya. Thank you very much for being part of this roundtable. Until the next time when the NGX brings us together, I say thank you to everyone and bye for now.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Jello Waziri. Thank you, Jude.
Yeah, Carl.